Everybody, welcome back to another edition of Bold Predictions here at Inside Nebraska. Before we get going, I encourage you guys to like this video, subscribe to the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel, get all of these videos dropped directly into your feed. We got a lot of great content. These guys who are joining me, as always, are Steve Marek and Tim Vergeese. I'm Zack Carpenter, and they just had the Nebraska Football Show, the latest edition, come out on our YouTube channel and Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Went up Wednesday, so I encourage you guys to check that out. But we're going to get rolling here today. Nebraska returning home for the first time for a home game, first time since October. What was it? October 12th, October 5th against Rutgers. It's the last home game. They won the last one, boys, and now they're 6.5 point favorite. Updated line with a 40.5 point total for the over under. Steve, just to kick things off, just throw a general thought my direction of what you guys think. I know UCLA is a little bit of an unknown coming in or coming into Lincoln. So what do we got?
Yeah, they are kind of an unknown. I don't know what to think of them right now. Everybody left them for dead two weekends ago when they went to Rutgers. Nobody thought they were going to win that game, flying across the country, playing Greg Schiano, but they did. They showed some life. They showed some fight. Which is good, which is what Nebraska showed last week. So you got two teams kind of maybe feeling good about themselves, and it took a lot for UCLA 5 game losing streak, but they played just a murderer's row really of Big Ten football games, and also throw in LSU early in the season as well. So it hasn't been really easy for UCLA in their debut season in the Big Ten, but maybe they're feeling good about themselves, hopping on a plane again, coming to the Midwest and playing Nebraska, which had coming off a really good rebound effort themselves at Ohio State, losing by just 4 points when everybody thought it was going to probably be 50 or something like that. So this is a big game for both teams, and especially for Nebraska. Beat the Bruins, become bowl eligible for the first time in I don't know, since 2016. Can't do math, so it's it.
8 years.
Yeah, win this win this one, and I think a lot of people around the program are going to be feeling good about themselves, kind of seeing the baby steps forward to just being better, becoming a better program, doing the things you need to do. So this is a big game. This is a really big game.
Yeah, just looking at the Tim, before you go, just looking at the UCLA schedule real quick. It was one of those schedules that you look at it before the season starts, like when their first year in the Big Ten, they've got a little bit of a gauntlet, and we didn't even know how good Indiana was going to be yet.
Yeah, that's the
I
that's the
put,
kicker. Indiana turns out to
yeah,
be really good.
I had Purdue in the preseason Cleveland.com poll. I had Purdue finishing last and UCLA second to last in the Big Ten, and um, a lot of that was due to the schedule. They opened up with a trip to Hawaii for their first game, and then they returned home for Indiana, which was unranked at the time, now is 13th in the country. Then 16. All these rankings are what they were ranked at the time. At 16 LSU, then they returned for number 8 Oregon, and then at set number 7 Penn State, and then Minnesota at Rutgers, to finally get off the schneid a little bit. So they're sitting at 2-5 overall, 1-4 in the Big Ten, which is not in any way surprising with that with that schedule. So they're battle tested. They're also beaten up, probably battered and bruised. So that's why the bye week came at a perfect time for that team before coming into Nebraska. But Tim, it's again, like Steve was saying, 5-3 Nebraska, 1 win away from bowl eligibility to get that pressure valve release. I think there's so many of the veterans in this program. Heard Ty Robinson talking about yesterday. They know the importance of breaking that bowlless streak. And I don't know. Are we entering must win territory, Tim? Are we going to give me a hot take like that? I know it's a big game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is like kind of must win, just in the sense that like if this team is who we think they are, and they responded the way they did against Ohio State, and the way Matt Rule talked about it after the game, about like seeing that championship mindset instill in the locker room. And if this team is who Matt Rule thinks they are, if this team is who we think they are, you have to win on Saturday. You have to beat the teams you're supposed to beat in this conference. And yeah, and again, get that pressure off of you heading into those last 3 games against tougher opponents. But yeah, I think this is a must win just because it's the best chance you have at getting bowl eligible. The rest of the 3 games on the schedule are toss-ups. And yeah, this would just, I mean, continue to signal that things are heading in the right direction, or the trajectory is pointed upwards if they're able to handle business against a lesser opponent, a quote unquote lesser opponent, I would say.
I mean, they're a lesser opponent than Ohio State and Indiana, and
For sure.
I mean, Indiana proved that in week 2, 42-13 final score. But anyway, UCLA is coming off of the 35-32 win against Rutgers, and that was the by far the season high for point total for UCLA. Is also at, well, never mind. I was going to say it was the most points they allowed, but that's just not accurate at all. They allowed 42 to Indiana, 34 to LSU, 34 to Oregon, then 27 to Penn State, 32 to Rutgers. Nebraska only put up 14 on that Rutgers team. It was 14-7, 14-7 win, but it's college football, as you guys know. I believe this is college football. It's such a week to week. It's almost like the NFL they call a week to week league, but I feel like college football has become a lot the same way, with the way the landscape is now, with the parity and the talent spread out so much across the country. But anyway, I got a nugget for when my bold prediction comes around. But Steve, you start us off going into this game. What are you? How are you seeing things play out? What do you got for your first BP?
Yeah, so my bold prediction for this one is Jamal Banks catches 2 touchdowns. That's bold right there, considering Nebraska's passing attack lately.
Mm-hmm.
But just to get more specific on this thing, I think Jamal Banks will catch 2 touchdowns over Jalen Davies, UCLA corner Jalen Davies. Jalen did not have a great day against Rutgers, against 2 similarly sized receivers to Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair. KJ Duff, talented young receiver at Rutgers, 6'6", 220 pounds. Ian Strong also had a good day against Jalen Davies. He's 6'3", 210. These big-bodied guys are giving Jalen Davies of UCLA a little bit of problem. So I just think that Nebraska is going to want to come out and establish a run game. They showed some life in that department last week at Ohio State, which is kind of surprising considering it's Ohio State's defense, and that defensive front has some dudes up there. But they rushed for over 100 yards. That was the first time they did that since Purdue. So there's a little bit of life in that run game. I think UCLA is going to want to shut that down first and foremost. And when that happens, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Dylan Raiola in that pass game on the outsides. And once he sees that single high safety up there, he knows he's going to have some options on the edge. And I think one of those options is going to be Jamal Banks versus Jalen Davies. And I think that Jamal Banks is going to rebound from some iffy performances in the past recently and grab 2 touchdowns over Jalen Davies. So that's my bold prediction with the oddly specific Jalen Davies kind of part to it.
So a couple of quick numbers is Jamal Banks through the first 5 games had 20 catches on 23 targets for 252 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the leader he was Nebraska's leader in receptions, and he was second in targets and yards. But over the last 3 games, Steve, as you alluded to, 5 catches on 16 targets for 95 yards combined. So about roughly 30 yard average per game over those last 3. And I thought that Nebraska was going to be able to take advantage of the size of Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair against Indiana. But we didn't, against those smaller corners, but we didn't see that. So it's a different story though with Jalen Davies.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to be bold with these predictions too. Obviously I didn't mention the Dylan Raiola part to us. He needs to throw these deep balls how we all know and how we have seen him in the past throw them. He's a good quarterback. He can make these throws, but lately he has not been throwing that good of deep balls for whatever reason. He's floating those things in there. And when that happens, that gives the defense a 50-50 ball. And Nebraska's receivers have shown that they kind of struggle when, 4 hands are on it. Usually the other 2 hands are getting it. At least that's what we've seen. So I don't know. I just, the way that Rutgers was picking on Jalen Davies just kind of makes me think that Nebraska is going to try it too. So for that to happen, Dylan Raiola needs to throw better passes. But then Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair, they need to, be stronger with the ball and come down with it when they get those, big mitts on it. And they have in the past, but lately sometimes they've just been getting ripped out or gone for incompletions or almost completions. So I don't know. I just feel that Jamal Banks, he has a talent. He's made some contested catches here.
We saw one
That
last week. We saw a little bit
yeah,
of life on
with the offensive
the
pass
back
interference.
shoulder. Yeah, the
Yeah,
back shoulder throw. There was one that actually counted, wasn't there? I think there was one that counted, and then the one at the end of the game.
I think so. Yeah,
Pretty
yeah, for
sure.
sure. But yeah, it's he has the talent to do it, and I think there's going to be opportunities in this game. So if Raiola can put it on him, I think he's going to come down with it this time. I just think that it's time for him to step up. It's time for Isaiah Nair to step up, and it's time for Dylan Raiola to step up in those throws too. So I think it all comes together.
Yeah, Tim. Before you go with your BP, what do you think about Steve's call out of Jalen Davies and
Yeah,
the
sorry,
Jamal
Jalen.
Banks?
I know you're listening
Um,
right now, Jalen, but
Locker room material is going to be posted up on the.
yeah,
They're going to play this
yep.
clip over and over again in the UCLA visitor locker room on Saturday. No,
We know they're watching.
yeah, and I agree. I do think UCLA is going to have, I mean, Nebraska's going to have an opportunity to throw the ball against UCLA, which kind of goes up against my bold prediction. We'll get to that in a sec. But yeah, like again, you look at this, you watch this UCLA team, you watch kind of the opponents they've played and what they've been able to do through the air. There's going to be opportunity for Nebraska there too. And this is kind of like a get right opportunity for the passing game. Again, heading into
yeah,
this final stretch of the year, you're going to need Dylan Raiola at their sharpest. You're going to need his receivers at their sharpest. This is an opportunity for them to kind of, push things vertically. Raiola talked about it in his press conference, kind of hinted at it in his press conference that they're going to try and take more downfield shots. And I think Nebraska's going to have that chance on Saturday. So we will see. As for my bold prediction, I'm going in a different way with the offense, just based on what we saw on Saturday, some of the comments from the coaching staff through this week. I feel like me and Steve talked about this in the Nebraska football show. Nebraska seemed to find something in the run game with some of those wham blocks and trap blocks, and I think I think realizing as well, like, hey, when Dante Dowdle gets into a rhythm, he's real tough to bring down. And Rule talked about how it still feels like they're 1-2 missed tackles away from breaking a big one. He talked about wanting to take one of those runs like 75 yards. So my bold prediction for this week is or my bold prediction for this week is Nebraska goes out and has a 50-yard rush this year, which I think would be the season high. I think the longest run of the year is 42 yards, I believe.
I thought it was Dylan Raiola's. Oh, I thought it was the 38 yarder, but maybe I'm wrong.
I thought we had a 42-yarder from him at Johnson earlier in the year.
Was
I
that
believe
against?
so.
Was that against? Was that against UTEP? Okay, are we getting IT on that? Are we getting stats and info on that? Which AKA
we
Steve
are.
Mark.
Emmett Johnson has a
Um,
42 yarder, and that's the longest.
was that
Okay.
against UNI or UTEP? I can't remember.
It was against
Neither.
UTEP.
Okay.
UTEP. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
See,
and then Emmett
I
had
know
a
things.
36 yarder against Northern Iowa.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that there was a long one. I couldn't remember by Emmett against UNI. I couldn't remember how long it went. But anyway, didn't mean to cut you off, Tim.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, that basically that's where I'm at. I think Nebraska, starting to find something again in the run game. I do believe those. And again, this is a UCLA team that has defended the run well this year, but it's largely because Steve and I talked about this as well. They haven't really faced the run all that much. Teams can kind of get what they want in the passing game, so they haven't. I think it's what's the stat, Steve? They're the Big Ten team with the second least rush attempts against them.
Yeah. So UCLA has the fifth best rush defense in the conference. They're allowing a little under 100 rushing yards per game. Then they're 3.38 yards per carry. That's seventh. So around the middle of the pack there. But they just haven't faced a lot of rushes. They have faced on average 29 rushes per game. That's the second fewest out of everybody in the conference. So what I think is happening is the opponents are getting up on UCLA so early that they just continue to pass it, and they have success through the air against this defense, and the defense just hasn't had a lot of runs to, defend. So maybe that's kind of like a, I don't know, fool's gold stat. I don't know what you want to call it, but I think Nebraska, is going to try their hand at running the football, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
Yeah. So anyway, I believe it'll work. At least, at least once. But yeah, and I think also with the weather report, with I think Nebraska's going to have an opportunity to get out to an early lead here and then play the way Matt Rule wants, which is just leaning on the run game in the second half. And I think all of that combined with, again, it's supposed to be rainier throughout the afternoon on Saturday. I think all of that combines for there's a good chance I think Nebraska is going to try and break one long run on Saturday.
Yeah, Steve, I'm gonna do Steve's job for him real quick as the replacement weatherman. 60% chance of rain during the day on Saturday, 10 to 20 mile an hour winds, and at night, chance of rain 70%. The quarter inch of rain, but during the day it says occasional rain showers possible and chance of rain 70%, quarter inch at night. And looking on another app, it's supposed to be it's estimated to come at around 6 o'clock when the heavier rainfall comes. So maybe we avoid that for the most part. But every time that we talk about weather, every single time we talk about it being a factor on bold predictions specifically, it winds up not being a factor. So I'm going to move on from that.
We've learned our lesson.
Yeah. So just touching on it, say it could be a factor, but we're not going to dwell on it. So looking at some of the stats, some of the rankings for UCLA's defense, rushing, like you guys said, rushing defense, fifth, sixth in the Big Ten, 13th nationally, 98.6 rushing yards allowed per game. The pass defense is second to last in Big Ten, and it's 118th in the country. And while Steve is going with Jamal Banks for his bold prediction, I'm going with Thomas Fidone for mine. I have.
It's a good one.
I'm going to go specifically, like get very specific. Thomas Fidone, 6 catches on 8 targets at 9 targets for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the reason I say that is because over the first 5 games, Thomas Fidone had only 11 catches on 13 targets for 112 yards. All 3 of those categories were 4th on the team. And he remains 4th on the team in receptions, targets, and yards. But over the last 3 weeks, he's come alive a little bit. He's been second on the team in catches and targets and first in yards. He's second behind Barney in receptions and targets. He's, like I said, first in receiving yards. Fidone over the last 2 weeks, 13 catches, 17 targets for 161 yards. Barney, 18 on 24 targets, 109 yards. A lot of stats I'm throwing at you. But Thomas Fidone has not found the end zone yet this season. And at this point last year, he was leading the team with 4 touchdown receptions, and that's what he ended with. Do you know how long it's been, Steve, since he caught a touchdown pass?
Louisiana Tech last year.
Good guess. No.
Yeah.
He had the 1 year quote unquote anniversary of the last time he scored a touchdown yesterday. It was against Purdue on October 29th, 2023. I think that's a perfect time to have a bold prediction for Thomas Fidone. Seeing him start to catch fire, he's starting to build up more of a connection now on the field with Dylan Raiola. Yeah, and a lot of those catches are going for first downs, like the second 21 back shoulder against Indiana. He had the big one late on the eventual go ahead touchdown drive in the it was in the fourth quarter. Yeah, it was in the fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter.
3rd and 5, he just sat down in the zone, picked up 8 yards, or maybe it was 3rd and 7. 3rd and 20, picks up 9 yards and gets out of bounds to set up John Hull's field goal. Then there's another one, I believe, on 3rd down that Fidone converted. So I think he's going to be a popular pick this week to be one of these like players of the game or centered around a bold prediction. But I think it's justified. I think it's justified that we could foresee him having a big game with the UCLA passing defense as suspected as it is. Dylan Raiola, like Tim said, sort of hinting at trying to get the ball downfield, which could be Thomas Fidone, could be not. Maybe we see him worked in the middle of the field a little bit more, but those are his averages, right around his averages. Like either I'm rounding down or up, depending when I go 6 catches on 9 targets for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns for Thomas Fidone.
I like that pick, and I wanted to give him a shout out anyway because of, we know what he can do as a receiver. We know that he's a big, pass catcher and he runs routes like a receiver and everything. But the thing coming in with Thomas Fidone was his ability to be a run blocker. And a lot of times, earlier in his career, when he's battled through all those just terrible knee injuries that has delayed his, development and progress on the football field, a lot of people are wondering about his run blocking ability, and it hasn't been good lately. But lately, as in past seasons, this season, I think he's really taken a step forward in that. And we saw that against Ohio State too, where he was asked to block, 330-pound interior defensive lineman, and he was doing it. He helped Dante Dowdell bust loose for a 19-yarder in a key moment in the fourth quarter. He has really kind of impressed me as a run blocker too. So he's kind of morphing into and developing into that all-around tight end that we saw, not just 6'6" pass catcher out there. So that's good to see for Nebraska's offense.
Yeah, he's moving around a lot better than we saw him the first few weeks. And I mean, like there were a couple games there, I think UTEP Colorado, where he's being used horizontally a little more.
Yeah.
And
Screens, you say?
Yeah, I was gonna go with the screen related bold prediction, but I don't want to rile up the YouTube commenters too much. Even though I actually think that Ramir Johnson's coming back, and for as much flack as Marcus Satterfield has taken for the play calling, the screen passes, and everything, it's been such a hot topic, such a big subject. I don't even want to dwell
Yeah,
on
I mean,
it
if you
here.
say Satterfield's
But
name, there's going to be like 19, negative comments in here. So it's just like best to move on. I'm just kidding. Just
but
go
we
on.
but we saw Ramir Johnson was out last week, and he's coming back. He's supposed to be coming back this week, right? And what was that? Was it against UTEP with the middle screen where Johnson was? It was like Dylan Raiola had to like angle the ball in there like a sidearm throw in the middle of the
Oh
field
yeah,
for a screen.
that
It
really
was
creative screen pass. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't think it was UTEP though,
I
but
don't
yeah,
think
I know
so
what you're
either.
talking about.
I can't remember now. I keep
Dang,
forgetting
I
who
had
they
it in the
played.
check down.
I keep forgetting who they played for some of these games. But that one popped off for a big gain. Maybe that was too far gone for us to be talking about it too much because of what just happened. But you get Ramir Johnson back. He's very clearly the Huskers' best running back in the pass game. So maybe we see that utilized. But and a couple just wanted to correct something. It was October 30th, 2023 when Nebraska beat Purdue and Fidone scored his last touchdown. I believe he had one catch for 1 yard and one touchdown in that game,
It
which
was
is
probably a screen.
it was
I
a
think it
hell
was
of
to
a,
the flats. No,
yeah,
I
it
actually think it was
was
to the
it
flat. Yeah,
yeah, it was to the flat.
and with like a couple of receivers in front of him. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a hell of a stat line. 1-1-1.
yep.
And Nebraska won that game. And other thing I had here on Fidone. Oh yeah, just the last note is that there were four at this point last year. There were four times where he was the team's outright leader and for most receptions. He was either outright leader or tied for the most receptions and receiving yards in four different games. This season, he didn't have any of the. He didn't. He wasn't the team leader in any of those categories until Indiana and Ohio State, and team leader in receptions and receiving yards against Indiana, and most receiving yards against Ohio State. So again, he's starting to come alive a little bit as we head down this most important stretch of Nebraska season, and we'll see if he can be utilized even more against a pass defense that's struggling. So, Steve, as we move into score predictions again, Nebraska's 6.5-point favorite as of Wednesday when we're recording this, with a 40.5-point over under.
Close game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Nebraska wins it though, 21-7. I think it's just going to be low scoring. UCLA really struggles to score the ball. I know they just are coming off a 35-point effort at Rutgers, but inside Memorial Stadium at home, Tom Osborne Field, Nebraska's defense is going to be juiced. I don't think they give UCLA much at all, offensively for the Bruins. So I think Nebraska gets out of here with a 21-7 win and becomes bowl eligible for the first time since 2016.
I'm predicting a few more points. I've got it 35-14, I'll say, Nebraska. Just think the offense gets right a little bit. And in that 35, I could even see a defensive score in there. But yeah, I think the Rutgers team that UCLA played feels like a bit of an outlier, even compared to the rest, how tough the rest of their schedule has been. But that's a Rutgers team that post Nebraska has kind of come out flat, and they had some coming into that Nebraska game, but coming out, I feel like they've just been their season's kind of gotten away from them a little bit. Um,
Well, when
and
you
that
play the
performance,
Huskers, Tim, when you play the Huskers, you gotta get ready for a physical
Well,
beatdown. You're gonna be worn out the next game.
we'll see what Ohio State looks like,
yeah, I was going to say
after.
that too. But that's the thing, like, I think Ethan Garbers is going to be playing with some confidence because of the game he had, but he's a guy that's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns this year, has an
Mhm.
interception in every game this year except for the game against Rutgers. So I think that Nebraska takes advantage of that, takes advantage of this is a better defense than Rutgers. So I think Nebraska's going to keep them bottled up offensively. And then Nebraska's offense is going to have a chance to kind of put some points up.
Well,
One thing on Ethan
go.
Garbers, Zach. He's coming off the best game of his life at Rutgers. He had career highs in passing yards with 383, passing touchdowns with 4, and then he even ran for a 49-yard touchdown on a scramble, and he completed 84% of his passes. He played the best game of his college life. So interesting to see how that transitions 2 weekends to Nebraska. So we'll see. I mean, I agree with Tim. Ethan Garbers has kind of had a meh career everywhere he's been, but he played really well at Rutgers. So we'll see what he does in Lincoln.
So what you're saying is he's due for a bad game.
Maybe, or he's going to keep it going. I don't know.
On average. And Tim, as he drinks his Charlie Brown coffee mug there, I saw that.
Oh, is that what it
He's
is?
trying to. That looks like a new gift or something. He was trying to subtly humble brag about it.
That's pretty cool.
I've got.
I got the
The
beneficial
standard.
Blues Fest of Howells, Nebraska.
I can't show my coffee
Uh-oh.
mug because I
What,
got
does that
it.
have a bad word on it?
No, it says I have a bunch of coffee mugs with city names on it, and this one
Oh.
is I completely ironically my one coffee mug says Columbus on it
Oh
from
yeah.
my time
Oh, you could have
living
said Columbus, Nebraska.
in Columbus. There's a skyline though in this one, so I don't know if I could do
Are you
that.
saying Columbus, Nebraska doesn't have a skyline?
I maybe I don't I
I'm just
maybe I
kidding.
don't know. I've never
They
been there,
don't
so I
really
guess I
know.
can't say. I guess I can't say without a shadow of a doubt that Columbus,
Shout
Nebraska.
out Ernie Hausman.
when
Anyway,
I
go
sa-
on.
when I started or when I heard that there was a Columbus, Nebraska, because I said it like three different people in my first week living here, and then like by a third time, I think people had just assumed, oh, Columbus, Nebraska, and that's
Oh
when I
yeah.
realized it was like my
Mhm.
first week on the Ohio State beat. There was three people, there were two people in one day who said, oh yeah, I went to OU, and then again, I'm like, oh, yeah, Oklahoma, and then the next person, oh, you went to Oklahoma too, is
Oh,
what I was thinking in my head, and the
Ohio.
next day
Yeah.
a third person said, I'm like, okay, there's no way that three people went to
Yeah.
Oklahoma
It's the
and
old Bobcats.
are there on the Ohio State beat, and then like dawned on, yeah, it just hit me. I'm like, oh my god, they're talking about Ohio. Like,
Mhm.
what am I doing?
Mhm.
Um, anyway, there's a game on Saturday. I have 24-13 Nebraska. I'm never, I'm not, I'm not betting on any overs in a Nebraska game from here until
No,
further notice. I
I'm
just,
done predicting points.
yeah, I hate predicting unders, but I mean, that's what's happened more often than not. I don't even want to look up the. Oh my god, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna look up what the under is after the show. I don't care right now, but the point is the under is hit more often than not in these Nebraska games. But I do have Nebraska covering, winning by 11. I mean, like when fans see and hear our final score predictions, I think they're going to be underwhelmed. Maybe not with Tim's. They would be happy with a 35-14 win, but I don't think they're going to be exactly thrilled at 21-7 or 24-13. But
No,
who
it should
cares?
be if it gets you
Who
going
who
bowling for the
who
first time
cares?
in
Yeah,
forever.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like if you win 2-0, like
Yeah.
be satisfied and move on to the next week, knowing that you have that monkey off your back. But before I set you guys up for any final thoughts, I did want to bring up. Do you guys remember what my bold prediction was for going into the Ohio State game? Probably not.
No.
It was Heinrich Harburg was going to have five carries, and three of them are going to go for first downs. And guess what happened? I looked it up before we started recording.
He only had
Dylan
one carry.
Raiola, Heinrich Harburg had one carry for -4 yards. Great prediction. Dylan Raiola, excluding the 3 sacks, had 6 carries. 3 of them went for first downs. So
As Sierra Wright said, Dylan Michael Vic Raiola.
Yeah.
He's gonna be running all over the place against UCLA now. So I don't know.
Hey, he has always had that in his bag, and I
Oh
know
yeah.
you guys might call
Everybody
me
just like
crazy.
watch his highlight video. I mean, he ran. Like he's not immobile. He's not like incapable of running. He's a teenager. Of course he is. He's just
Yeah,
it's
he's
not a huge
he's
part of his game, but it's there.
he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Josh Allen. Like, and I wrote about that just to plug on the site, InsideNebraska.com. Wrote a story about Dylan Raiola as a runner. You can check that out. Because that's sort of that's what we can expect. He's what's called a replacement runner, meaning he replaces the areas of the field vacated by the defense. We saw that against Colorado on that 3rd and 10 run of 12 yards. We saw that on Saturday during that 38 yarder, that big one. But anyway, Steve, any last thoughts? 10 seconds or less. Tim, 10 seconds or less.
Eric Bieniemy coming to Memorial Stadium for the first time in like probably since he was a Colorado Buffalo, right? I mean, a lot of people know about Eric Bieniemy and his play calls and his NFL career, but back in college with the, and I thought it was cool. I knew it, but it wasn't like that big of a thing with me when I heard it. Like Tony White, Deshaun Foster, teammates at UCLA. I thought that was just kind of a cool connection. I knew obviously both played at UCLA, but I did not realize that they were on the same team and teammates. So, I mean, that's a kind of a cool connection, if you ask me.
Yeah, nothing from me.
All right.
Big recruiting weekend. Yeah, that's
Big
about
recruiting weekend. Check it out at InsideNebraska.com. So that's going to do it for us. For Steve Mark and Tim Verghese, I'm Zach Carpenter. We'll catch you guys again next time.